Maria Lisella, the sixth Queen's Poet Laureate, received an Academy of American Poets Laureate Fellowship in 2020. She has 3 books of poetry: Thieves in the Family, New York Quarterly Books; Amore on Hope Street, wonderful book, Finishing Line Press; and 2 Naked Feet, Poets Wear Prada. Her work has appeared in Lips, Mom Egg Review, New York Quarterly, Patterson Literary Review, Ekphrastic Review, and Verse Virtual, and recently won 3rd prize in the Amilcare Solferini, how did I do, International Poetry Competition. She curates the Italian American Writers Association reading and is a correspondent for the bilingual La Voce di New York, Never Stop Traveling, and the Jerusalem Post. She conducts writing workshops for underserved communities through the Queens Public Library System, and she never sleeps. Okay, Maria.
That's funny. I think I'm going to start with kind of an old poem. It has 2 different titles. As I went to look for it, of course, it's 2 different titles. But it has to do with weather, and it seems like I'm incredibly obsessed by weather these days. I'm not really sure why, but okay. I won't explain every poem. So, it snowed. That April, it snowed. After dating 3 months, I drove to his apartment to break up. Treating drama for action, when he walked me to the car, I knew it wasn't over. Hood to wheels, rims blanketed in snow. We'd missed the blizzard during our lovers' spat. We marched back along Creston Avenue, past shifty St. James Park, to an overheated New York apartment. Welcomed by the blush of heat, we took our places under still warm sheets, the sound of the last snow flicking against the thin window panes. That actually happened. It was April 1982. It was a very strange snowstorm in the middle of April. And this is another little neighborhood poem. Bagel Shop, Astoria. Her grandmother's silver braid brushes my back. We're that close in the Broadway bagel shop. Her shoulders slump inside the ruffled polyester blouse, no match for the loomed cotton ones with hand-crocheted collars she left back home. I turn my head, look over her shoulder, and the sharp eyes and the copper mestiza face that belonged to her granddaughter, smiling a wide grin as she demonstrates to Abuelita how one chews an American big as a flying saucer bagel, oozing with cream cheese, managing to keep the queso off her shirt and table. I'm going to skip to stepmothering. I always try to do these things in subject, but it doesn't always work. So this is one of my favorite poems, and it was published, I think, by Big City Lit, finally, before they closed. As you know, they shut down. Stepping into the sea. You let me, your stepmother, take your hand to walk into the surf. Let slippery seaweed wrap around your ankles like emerald ribbons. We step on the edge of lacy waves that feel like butter on hot skin. You hold back. Your mother's fear of the sea, fear of me, sways you. She warns you, Yemaya, the Santeria goddess, will swallow you into the sea here in Puerto Rico, La Isla Bonita, land of your Borinquen bloodline. I tip the balance. I study Santeria. I pin a benevolent picture of Yemaya on my bulletin board, so she will know who we are and where we are. Queen of the ocean, mother Yemaya, savior of sailors, spirit of moonlight. She will protect you, I swear, as she does sailors in stormy seas. Tall, lean, in silver drapery, she shows up in New Orleans hoodoo. In Brazil, her wizened face a walnut. In Venezuela, I find a child-sized likeness of her, but I'm afraid to bring it home, its eyes too lifelike. Today, we are in Puerto Rico. We weave our fingers together, dig our toes into the sea floor, sandy and firm underfoot, enter the sea of your ancestors. Thank you. I'm glad you like that. And I have another bringing up stepson poem, which I kind of like a lot, actually. And I think this poem got into New Verse News a number of years ago. It was published around the time of the Trayvon Martin murder. Our date. My stepson spent the afternoon in detention for lying to a nun. I told them my name means pheasants in Italian, but no one believed me. Half white, half Puerto Rican, Italian last name, nappy hair, said otherwise. At the perfect age of 10, my stepson and I had a date one afternoon. Determined to teach him to fly, forget nuns, divorced parents, overprotective mother, or just ride a bike, a two-wheeler, banana seat, shiny, chrome, bells, streamers. He'd run alongside it, throw one leg far and wide in time to find the pedal on the other side. I clutched the back of the seat, sent him off as far as I could, like my father did for me, knowing spills and harm would follow. Years later, a knot in my heart, his dusty, tear-smeared face, lips quivering, telling me of a quick ride to an Italian neighborhood in Pelham Bay, where he was chased down by taunts of, "You don't belong here." I tried to tell them my name was Italian, but no one listened. I think of all I don't know about courage, how to build it, pass it on, when to fight, when to flee, and when to leave your bike behind, save your life, and find your way home. I'm very lucky. I love that kid. This is a little ditty, just a light piece from, I think I found this, this was kind of a found poem. Hunger. After Dina's husband left her, the white walls seemed drab, invisible on some days. She painted the kitchen lemon, the living room peach, the dining room asparagus, her bedroom watermelon. Her mother-in-law thought it was her Italian heritage. Her ex-husband thought she was hungry. So interesting how men understand each other, women, right? No offense, men. I'm gonna skip to a mother poem. So my mother lived to 103. It's like, I always felt like I was always bragging about my mother. And she was kind of, you know, she was this tiny person, but she knew who she was much of the time. Let's put it that way. My mother's egg slicer. This happens to be a new piece. The tines no longer match the aluminum wire ribs, battered, bent, dented, dull, made in Germany, sliced every hard-boiled egg that decorated the rims of platters for engagements, baby showers, celebrations, beaten by the countless times it stuck out of a kitchen drawer, clamoring with dozens of serving spoons, ladles, knives, potato mashers, measuring spoons linked by a ring, the menacing angel food cake cutter with its own comb designed to do the least damage to delicate cakes, jammed up against a poacher pan meant to produce perfect eggs on Saturday or Sunday mornings when there was time to prepare something special because it was the weekend. Dad was home. He'd make fancy dishes like crepe Suzettes with sweetened orange juice, recall his war days in France. The breadwinner, the singular paycheck. He deserved perfect poached eggs, something practical, solid. But it was the hard-boiled sulfur smell of the eggs that announced special occasions. The egg slicer would be put into service, the special tool for fancy food. It had a singular duty, could not be used for any other task, but to make sunny spheres to add style, good fortune, sophistication to 1950s platters wrapped tight with saran, offered up to the party host. Never too tired, she'd stay up until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Maybe it was her time alone, precious time to create more than practical meals to feed 3 generations in a household of 8. Her pride delivering dishes ringed with a compass of circles promising a future, an easy birth. She left but one. I scoured the internet to find one for each sister so they can celebrate with small sons. Thanks. And then there's the inevitable task of, no matter how long your parents live, to clean the house. So, so this was actually though and I'm gonna give a call out to Deborah Turpin, because her sister is a yoga teacher and writer and multi-talented woman, and who I've really been lucky to meet and study yoga with. And she came up with this little meditation before writing workshops. And I used this in a class, and this is what I came out with. The mantra is kind of, I no longer need. So I did this with a group of students at York College. I no longer need this house with its refrigerator magnets, its talismans and dream catchers, its saints and crucifixes, its dusty nativity scents, its sloping ceilings on the top floor, once a refuge from the noisy generations shouting in dialect and English, and that doll dressed in a low-slung crochet dress like a figure out of a bordello in a Wild West movie. She has one blue eye half shut, and she spooks my sister every time she looks at her, says she's looking back. But I know the background of that doll. I know she was born in Glendale, Queens, where Aunt Rose crocheted jackets for tissue boxes and toilet paper, circular doilies to be placed under vases and picture frames. She was born out of that craft that no one practices anymore. Back then, it was considered a gift to receive something handmade. Never mind, it did not match the decor, but that doll would sit on the bed after it was made, and it was made every morning before we went to school. A made bed showed order, showed we were getting ready for the day, told our mother we were helping her keep order in a household of 8 people from different countries. And now I make my bed each morning to tell myself my life has order, that even in the chaos of losing my soulmate, one small corner of my day is under control, and it won't make me cry. Yeah, it always comes back to that, doesn't it? And I have this kind of newish poem that I wanted to try out on you guys. A new crowd, a new poem. So this came out of a prompt. I don't know, I find I need sort of the pressure of prompts. I don't know, I don't write just like out of the sky. I don't know what other people do. This is called The Naming. I love TV families because everyone was so clean, and the houses so organized, and the pets so very well behaved and groomed. Father Knows Best was a challenge because in our house, a lot of people thought they knew best. For sure, my mother was in my father's corner much of the time, but she straddled the seesaw of power since her mother held sway much of the time. And my educated father had 2 illiterate in-laws to contend with. Following tradition, he respected, if not agreed with them, and this he did with his head bent low, so it was hard not to take sides in all sorts of issues, like where the roses should be planted, or the zucchini should grow, or how to wrap the fig tree. The undisclosed subtext was my father was the breadwinner, so my mother tried hard to protect his vote without stirring trouble with her mother. This kind of thing never happened on Father Knows Best, where Robert Young arrived with his insurance salesman smile each evening at 5, and Jane Wyman's starched and pressed apron made housework look like a white-collar job. And really, everything was okay. Dinner was always on time, and there was dessert, even on weeknights, and no one yelled in 3 languages because they were American. And dinners at our house were pure opera, although no one actually died unless you count the snake I killed in the garden, which was my brother's pet. I confess I knew it was unkind. After all, that snake never did a thing to me. The TV families had model dogs. They never had cats or snakes, and no one slouched or complained the pasta was overcooked or the veal was too dry. At their dining room tables, controversy was about how to make applesauce or chocolate chip cookies, or how Donnie the paperboy kept tossing the paper into the bushes. In our house, the discussions ranged from the dog who slept in his own shingled house outside, the Irish nuns, the priests who did not want to serve communion to my grandmother at home. We also had very different names. There were no buds or kittens. We had serious names for seriously dead people, and no amount of popcorn would get the adults to agree on naming the next two children, especially because my father gave a lot of ground slowly to his in-laws. But when it came to the next two, instead of being named for them, they were named after him and my mother, as if he claimed the next two as the real Americans named after live people. It's probably one of my longest poems, I just realized. And this is a little short one. Mantras. She went to India to study on bended knee, head bowed to utter Om. Follow her breath rise and fall through the fine cilia that lines her nostrils, departing at the count of 8. Hushed whisper travels well from nose to mouth and back. Not unlike repeating the rosary, fingers following the chain circle, one bead at a time. And since we're so close to this, I would say a shanda of an inauguration. Shanda is a Yiddish word meaning scandal. Because we also found out we're Jewish, so we just add that filter. This is from Thieves in the Family, which is kind of my favorite book of mine. Illegal. We are somebody, and we are from somewhere. They camp at the airport on the tarmac. The Libyans step on them, beat them, whipping dogs. They call them abd, slaves, darker than all the rest, lower than the Chinese, working in Libya for years. They are trapped. Tell someone, we are dying. And I have kind of a newish piece that works with this. I think I have about 5 minutes left. Okay. Sorry, because I put my stopwatch on and forgot to hit it. I can't write about America because I never met America. I live in a corner of what's called the United States of America. But who is America? And where would I go to find her? Half a century ago, I visited my relatives in Calabria, the ones who stayed behind in their tumbled down cement block houses in a village without roads, just a dusty track cars ride by quickly, never stopping. These people never left the land they were born into, never believed the stories about streets paved with gold. Even they knew they were expected to build those roads long before the gold appeared across the Atlantic Ocean. They could not imagine packing less than nothing and taking it to a place where no one knew their names, their language, the churches they worshiped in. They stayed behind through the famines, the breads baked out of nearly nothing, and grew their food on that good-for-nothing land. Survived, thrived on bushels of figs and tomatoes, eggplant, artichokes, made mozzarella out of buffalo milk that stunk to high heavens. So when the Cugini Americani visited them, we followed them up to the ridge behind their house, a postage stamp plot of land crowded with tiny crops that belonged to neighbors. They spread their arms to the sky and they announced in dialect, "Ca è l'America, ca a la terra nostra." Here is America, here on our earth. You got to give it to them because they really managed to live through World War II. And now I'm going to take you to someplace kind of like lush. I like this poem. Hope you like it. Ladies who lunch at Le Bernardin prefer oysters no larger than 2 inches, briny, muscular, manageable. The most popular are widow's holes, like a punchline to a dirty joke about the world's favorite aphrodisiac. Instead, it's named for a widow married to a lost at sea whaler who lived on the Peconic, where oysters are born, bred, cultivated to ladylike taste. If left alone, can live for 15 years, grow to foot-long sea creatures. Almost inert, inanimate as a plant, oysters live sealed inside shells, filled with their own juice. Take one firm bite, or the creature will live on in your stomach, say the French. Puff your cheek with its liquor. Taste the salty air. A sweet creature. Slurp, never chew. Tease it. Work it with your tongue. Never sink your teeth in, goodness no. Yet oysters say, like others say, if you swallow, all oysters are the same. This is my final piece. Like no one's watching. And I want to give a shout out to a couple of people who do help me with poems. Perry Nicholas, who's a really terrific writer, and Andrea is part of a workshop I'm in. A lot of people who contribute to these things. Like no one's watching. I fell for it the minute I saw it, with a little help from my youngest sister, who didn't hesitate to point out the cranberry Toyota, like Christmas, Thanksgiving, like the perpetual reds we wear on our lips now, striving to perk up olive skin tones, growing more and more sallow with age. Compare lipsticks, glossy and matte for older lips that have lost definition, as creeping feathered lip lines or creases slip in the edges of our once pouty, fleshy, sexy, come-on mouths. And so Google will steer us to why these things happen. From sipping through straws, smoking, bad living, and the loss of collagen. Talking and smiling exacerbate the lines. Chastens lip volume, but life without talking or smiling is hardly worth living. Toss out the die-hard, youth-driven images of faces without wear. Faces so clean and polished, a life unlived. No anger, no passion, just sheer, white, pure, untouched, virginal to the vicissitudes of loss. Skin folds and creases as we sleep. Should we stay awake to watch the show, to avoid the inevitable, to banish lip wrinkles and lines, plump them up vertically, horizontally, or exfoliate, scrub the fine satiny surface of our lips with hyaluronic acid, peptides, antioxidants. Better yet, kiss the person next to you. Make sure he's not a man baby who won't appreciate the gesture. No matter the social disorder and havoc you wreak, because at a certain moment, the world is no longer watching. You will replenish moisture, passion, and the need to throw your head back and laugh your lips off. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Maria. What a wonderful choice of your work to read for us. We appreciate it. Now's the time to put comments in the chat. To please respond to Maria's beautiful work. Now's the time. Okay. All right. So I'm going to introduce our next poet. Carmine Giordano was born in Brooklyn, New York, and has a master's degree in English literature from New York University, and was a recipient of a 1993 Fulbright Award for study in Italy. He is a retired teacher and assistant principal from the New York City Board of Education school system. He is also a nationally certified psychoanalyst and a member of the National Association for the Advancement of Psychoanalysis, and a reviewer and columnist for the NAAP newsletter. He is an assistant editor of the online poetry magazine Abalone Moon and the author of 7 poetry collections: The Courage of Flowers, The Hero's Journey, Still Sing, The Habit of Spring, Collected Poems 2020, Saving Daylight, and Blue Jay and Found Objects. Saving Daylight and Blue Jay and Found Objects. His poetry has appeared in the Southampton Journal, the River Poets Journal, Abalone Moon, Poets of the Palm Beaches Anthology, Perspectives, Eunonia Review, Belletrist, etc., a review of general semantics. Translations of his poems have appeared in Correnti Incrociate Editor, English-Italian Anthology, 2021, and in a fall 2020 release of the same. He has written the preface to an Italian translation of the poetry of the Welsh poet John Eliot, again an Italian phrase, Canzoni del Venerdì Sera, okay, how am I doing? Which also appeared in the December 2020 edition of the Wales Art Review. Mr. Giordano has spent most of his life teaching writing and literature in New York, Georgia, and Florida, where he is an adjunct lecturer at Palm Beach State College, conducts frequent readings and poetry workshops at West Palm Beach Libraries, and lives in happy retirement with his wife, Bonnie. And with that, I give you Carmine Giordano. Carmine?
Hey, thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you so much for the privilege of sharing my own work with you. Maria, your family sounds so much like mine in so many respects. My own poetry is the way I see it as moments of epiphany. I like that word. I like that concept of poetry as a manifestation, as a seeing of something that was always there, but you were mostly unconscious of, and then you see it and you react. It's almost Wordsworth's emotion recollected in tranquility. Remember Emily Dickinson, she said, if I read a book and it makes my whole body so cold and no fire can warm me, I know that's poetry. If I feel physically as if the top of my head were taken off, I know that is poetry. These are the only ways I know it. Is there any other way? So I think that poets present us these experiences and they ask us to pay attention. You know, Mary Oliver, in one of her poems, she says, when the roses speak, I pay attention. I was a bride married to amazement, the bridegroom taking the world into my arms. So I see it, I think, I like to see poets as evangelists, you know, in the sense of they tell the good news, they're compelled to tell the good news, compelled to share what they've seen. And one of my poems about how epiphanies, moments of epiphanies happen is called What is True About Us. We were talking a lot on the long road, the long ride up to the cottage house in Belmont, the highest post office in Vermont, where if it's not snowing anywhere else, it's always snowing there. And we passed the Abbey in Weston, where the monks kept bothering heaven and night and day with their songs, hoping that there is something out there that loves them for their want. While the autumn trees were blazing with crimson gold and deep vermilion, and then we stepped out of the car, all of Earth's lights suddenly extinguished around us, everything going black in shadow, and we stopped talking. And then we lost our breath when the sky suddenly dropped down on us in a mantle of stars. And we stood there in silence, all of us diminished, illuminated by the light. Poetry is when you see things that were always there all at once, suddenly, like a strike of lightning, that the hand that writes this is mortal tissue, hurled here from the stars, eons back, with everything else that is, that the gnat, the flea, the manatee, and the great sequoia tree, and all the bodies, black or white or tan or yellow or ivory, have part of me, and I of them. All of us, with the cat, the mouse, and the turtle, spinning together around the sun for a little while, trying to find our way. The poetry is when you see this. Epiphany, that one line in the poem, the lodestar, stops you, not really knowing why. Washes your eyes, tells your blood something you needed to know. Changes where you were going, the way you would have gone there. Now, I have a number of themes where I expressed my own epiphanies. One of the themes I have is that in us, the universe has evolved to self-awareness. If you think of it, 14 billion years ago, scientists tell us the universe, through 14 billion years, the universe has evolved the capacity in us to become aware of itself, to know that it knows. What Emily Dickinson's line, we can see to see. The greatest epiphany is that we exist, as if a stone or a breathing creature could suddenly know that it exists, that it's apart from anything else. Genesis. This is the sound the world makes after it boomed from zero billions of eons ago. The royal eternal of energy, mass, and antimatter, the fold of its fundamental parts, electrons, protons, neutrinos, photons, melting and melding in fusion and fission. The energy of light speed multiplied by itself, multiplied by mass, infinitely expanding. The trillion galaxies, billion, trillion, quadrillion stars, centillion planets with their moons. Through the chop of your teeth, the flap of your tongue, the movement of your jaw, the wind from the inside blowing out, the universe says, I am. I know that I am. I know that I know this. The theme is that the momentum of that first moment continues and lives in every being as a central inner force, urging fulfillment of the being, the bud to become a rose, the acorn to become an oak tree, the embryo to become the full adult. Dylan Thomas's sense of it in the force that through the green fuse drives the flower, drives my green age. In Hopkins, in God's grandeur, nature is never spent. There lives the dearest freshness deep down things. Poem is called Elan Vital. The energy released in the atomic bomb is always in us, is in everything, makes everything move, is the protean force that brings the seed to the ovary, the embryo to the fetus, that drives the flower through the fuse, takes us all to bloom, to fold, to dust, to root again in the sequoia tree, take it from the ground, thrust it to the sun, the perpetual cycle flowing through the universe, shaping and reshaping, mass to energy, to mass, to energy, to mass. You and I squared the speed of light, over and over again in the endless wave of infinite time. Flower, while we whine and roar, disgrace ourselves in the same world, I tell you that a great mystery is taking place in the potted amaryllis in my flower Florida living room. Something in her, some presence, some power, some fierce force, mighty drive is pushing peduncle, stamen, pistil, petals of minty green through a stem of air, takes me to my knees, tells me I have been given, that I am only passing here. Oh, if I only knew the language of flowers, I would leap out of myself, root, be plant, be leaf, burst into bloom with her. Relativity, you can shape stardust, knead it any way you want, stretch its molecules, fold them into themselves, meld energy to mass, multiply it by the square of the speed of light. Make the great sequoia tree, the wing of the bumblebee, the lion's tooth, the damask rose, you and me. It's all interchangeable. We're all different forms of the same thing. We who kill one another for the differences. The theme is that life is an arc from birth to death, a flourishing, point and purpose. The amaryllis flowers, potted tall out there against a screen, have budded up, unfurled, bloomed out in bursts of petals, ivory pink and lavender, their edges purpling in crimson reds. They've commandeered the sun at the center of the yard. They toil not, spin not. They tell me here, breathing in, breathing out, the point of a living thing, the sole purpose, the flourish, the fullness of being there. And in that arc, the theme that we all die, that we come from and we will go back to zero. And I am dumb, Dylan Thomas says, to tell the crooked rose, my youth is bent by the same wintry fever. This poem's called Synonyms for Zero. The wind-up clock keeps banging out the hours. The chimes are not in tune and aberrate from sweetness. The minutes are arthritic, are old men in walkers. They move in petty paces. But what's the rush, Antonio? Where are you running to? Learn to go slow, because the news is ultimately not good. At the end of whatever end you're moving towards is only nil, null, naught, none, nix, nada, nine, nichts, niente, not, none, nothing at all. Zilch, zip, zippo, zed, zero. Verstehst? Entiendes? Kabish? The other theme is that any communication bravely attempts the impossible to translate what is really neurocircuitry, sensation, feeling, thought, to translate into sound and symbols, that the best we give each other of our experiences are alphabet. As Antoine Artaud said, beneath the poetry of the texts, there lies the actual poetry, without form and without text. It's called Lost in Translation. When I tell you that I'm bleeding, that the shutter panel slammed my thumb hard, you don't know anything about that, but the curls and angles of the vowels and consonants that ring in the canyons of your ears. You don't feel anything about me. Just something goes across somewhere away from here, from my blood and my bruise, to something somewhere over there where you are. Islands, we're all of us always out here by ourselves, exchanging bellows of air, our teeth and tongue shaping it to sound. The groan strikes the tympanum, the pain remains inside, travels the neural pathway insular to the brain. We only imagine each other's misery is the same. And I write about my father, my parents, the way Maria so lovingly spoke of hers. This is called planetary travel. My father was always shy when he loved me in his way, breaking his back, cementing the cracked sidewalks of Brooklyn, freezing his face off on those 4 a.m. light the coal stoves winter bicycle rides through the dark, lonely streets, feeling unequal to the task, not knowing how to cross the planetary distances between us, how to land his heart where I was, how to speak my foreign language, how to place his large hands thick and hard like cinder blocks over my head in blessing, how to share his skin, anoint me like Solomon, pour into my being that which was man in him, lock me into my own bones, make me my own king, breach the cold orbits around which we spun. Then there's my wife, Ronnie. Breakfast plate, another grand morning in the lovely world. My wife is frying bacon with the scrambling eggs. Mozart for violin and piano on the TV screen. Outside, the amaryllis flowers are standing tall. There's that mockingbird making his own music, allegro with the concerto. The piano notes ping like crystal, the sweet, salty smokiness of the chew, everything gone andante. The light coming up over the houses, the sun allegretto now. The pianist trilling his notes, the violins coming up back, a last piece of bacon twirling above the iris and the lady slippers on the plate. The instruments flourish with frisson. The conductor and the musicians bow, the audience applauding. The day has opened up, elegant, glorious, and golden. My wife is right there. This poem, The Air You Breathe, The Ground You Walk On. My wife is right there like a spoon near a coffee cup. The napkin folded near a plate. She's tap water in clean glass. She's everyday conversation, how the salmon is best at Trader Joe's, how tomorrow morning she's going to wash the towels, how her Apple Watch has clocked her walk down the subway stairs. She's good shoes, brown paper bags. She's whole sentences, full paragraphs. She's all that's extraordinary of the ordinary day, how the air moves through you, in and out easy, how gravity holds you to the ground. A lot of the epiphanies are, when I look back at some of the sense of reality that was given to me early when I didn't know better, I find that I get annoyed and here's this poem, Reductio ad absurdum, reduction to the absurd. I used to get the biggest buzz thinking of Jesus, how the big being of the universe rolled himself out, small and tiny, into man-shaped form, squeezed himself, eyes, nose, and bum, into an adolescent girl from old Judea, like a cast in a plastic mold. And as Sister Georgina Louise and Monsignor Elwood and the Pope and the whole College of Cardinals told me, the amazing thing was that he did it all for little old, inconsequential me. A kid who lived between Avenue P and Ryder, a trolley ride away from Coney Island, because my old Neanderthal grandparents had been outfoxed by a snake and gave me the original sin, which made them and me horny and bunkers and got us chased out of a garden where before then we were naked and would have lived forever. And this is what I was told was the way things really were when they wound me up and sent me out into my life where coyotes roam in desert places, where the leaves of spring fall from the trees, where my feet bear down on the pull of the earth while I drag the human animal, pitiful and brave, through his long and lonely paces. More of this credo, because she was shrouded in black, with a starchy bib under her chin, and a man nailed to a cross swinging between her breasts below. And because my mother blushed and stammered her immigrant English when she was near her, and because I was new in the world of men, I believed Sister Georgina Louise when she told me that Almighty God, King of Kings and Lord of Lords, had squeezed himself into a kid in a dirty stable 1,000 years ago and roamed the land for a while, turning water into wine and bringing his rotting friends back to life. And I believed her when she said that if I put a pig-stuffed wiener into a pocket of bread loaded with sauerkraut and mustard and ate it on the 6th day of the week, the creator of the sun and moon and stars would fry my behind forever when I died in blazing fires of pain. And I believed her when she lashed me with the rubber-tipped blackboard stick that the body I lived in was a mill of sin that needed to be brought to its knees until the soul that dwelt in it could kick it off in the end and live happily ever after somewhere over the rainbow where bluebirds are said to fly. The cost of things. It was the cross jangling between her breasts when Sister Mary Jo slapped the shit out of me, whipped the rubber-tipped pointer across my outstretched hands that told me Jesus was always going to cause me pain. Whenever the animal reared up in me, whenever mouth wanted mouth, groin wanted fire, when whatever I wanted was not of air, spirit, or soul, when whatever I wanted slipped, foamed, shouted, was it the earth, was it the sea? We keep celebrating the old fictions, Antonio. This poem called Stardust. Seas parting, men rising from the dead, prophets flying in the skies, the divine right of kings, monarchies, destinies, reasons for war, righteous conquest, fraternity, equality, and liberty, home of the brave, land of the free, as though these ever were or really are pieces of the known world, like meadow grass or rain falling hard and cold on the limbs of the great sequoia. These are rather the twisting abstractions we toy with in our playtime, the dumb shows we stage for our amusement. This conscious dust we are, lately arriving from the stars, not knowing what to do, how to shape our random moments being, shining with brilliance, hurtling ourselves with valiance, silly, stupid, and monumental, through the void, across the infinite dark. Then with all that, another the theme I write about is the possibility of really there being something divine in nature's intricate pattern. After all, it's called the need for light. And yet, in all the darkness, in the world of blah and roses, one still feels the need for light, to reach out and touch the hem of Jesus, charlatan or not, and have him turn his eyes as though the same kind of love were possible from some being of being who was and is and will always be, that the Father feels for the flesh he seated, that the Mother shows for the body that was once her body, that once upon a time among the galaxies of stars, special and separate in all the raw nothing that breeds the universe, love might have known and seen us. Then another theme, reverence and respect for all creatures, great and small, seeing as that we all come from the same place, that same moment. called Bug. Such a grand death in the garage this afternoon. I saw it near the refrigerator door. The large palmetto bug on its back, its legs quietly akimbo, its huge antennae on each side horizontal, its body a sheen of umber brown, seemed as though its end had come gentle, with calm and resignation, as though it were somehow satisfied to have done its life well in the small and lowly corners of the world, beautiful as Bug, that crafted like us from the stars, amazing, monumental, here now on the floor of the world, to have earned its own praise. How? I swear my wife thinks I'm nuts, so I keep letting the water bugs go. How this morning there was one young pup in the sink, shining and spanking new, his aspect fresh, clean, like a little league kid in the first game of the season, like an adolescent sporting his mustache hairs for the ladies. How he was amber, green, gold, vermilion. How from eons of ages and millions of stars, among mountains and lions and kings, he could have this place in time. How could I not let him go? And the last theme is how to live. How do you survive? Live. Mary Oliver, I quote her, and that's when you know, Mary Oliver says in a poem, you will live whether you will or not, one way or the other, because everything is everything else. One long muscle. You don't need to stay all night at that tomb, waiting for the angel to blow away the stone. Watch that dead man rise, pull up, put on his shirt and pants, walk out among the living. None of us ever really dies. We all go back to something that always was, something that always is. Switching to light. Each night I turn on the lights, lower the blinds, shut out the dark. Each morning I raise the blinds, let in the light, drive out the inside dark. The eternal charge we all have from the first day when all came into being, to go on, to shut out pain, to let in joy. Open the kitchen drawer, take the silver spoon, ladle the blueberry jam onto the maple cinnamon bread, stir the hazel cream into the coffee, savor the sitting at the table, the woman whose life you breathe, the grace that makes you whole. Mend the broken chair, fix the torn screen, stretch those bones, take your medicine. Each day the earth makes its run obligatory around the sun. You cannot stay sad and dark. Joy and light are categorical imperative. My last poem, Survival Kit. This is how you survive. Know first, face it, that you've shown up 13 billion years late in the game. That you, king, queen, beggar man, saint, or fool, are temporary, are dust. That ultimately and finally, all your hoo-ha, rah-rah, and bullshit won't matter anyway. Not to you, not to me, not to anybody. Like an old newspaper doesn't, filled with stuff that already happened, tossed in the seat of a subway car. And after you let that sink in and hoot and holler about it for a while, Do your antic dance, start your novenas, rant, rail, take lithium, whatever poison suits you. Beam up beings in the sky, put yourself there, put gun to your head, razor to your wrist. Then, when you're ready to stop your malarkey, do this next for as much and as long as you can. Flush your eyes with indigo and orange, cobalt, ochre, cinnabar, a slash of dawn, the bunting's wing. Whirl your ears with coos and caws, the cry of the eagle, the call of the prairie wolf. Singe your mouth with capsicum, ginger, savina, and radish root. Breathe in lily, lilac, hyacinth, rose, and white gardenia. Touch the hard rib of trees, the smooth stems of flowers. Feel the force of the earth coursing through them, and then get on with your life. Live it and talk it and walk it. Take care of business. Render to Caesar. Have change in your pocket. And if anything of love holds you out, this is absolute essential. Step outside the walls of your skin. Give the whole of your house. Give all that you have. And love her and love him as fierce and as long as you can. And then when you see the leaves fall and the branches go bare, know to surrender. Go back. Know to become the dust of stars once more.